All right, guys. I would like to start off today by just going through the setup that you're gonna need to do to do the thumbnails. Okay, we can see right here is the basic opening interface of Adobe Photoshop. Okay, I've already downloaded the thumbnail templates. You can see those right here. So I could just click on those, but I'll just walk you through just opening them up. Okay, so let's click on Open, and let's see. We've got the thumbnail template with the spiral and without the spiral. Okay, so I'm going to open both of those. I'm just going to hold on my Shift key so I can grab them both and click on Open. Now it's going to ask me what kind of box I want these in. That doesn't really matter too much. You can see here there's media box, bounding box, crop box, bleed box, all that kind of stuff. The thing is the image size is 8.5 by 11 anyway, and the resolution is 300 dpi. That's the default, and that'll work just fine for what we need to do. Okay, so you can just leave all this stuff just on the default settings and it should work just fine. So click on OK, and it's going to do the same thing for the other one, and it'll click on OK, and there they are. Okay, so we've got both of these open here. Now, the reason that I opened them both is that as I explained in the text adjoining this file, the Fibonacci spiral is really useful for helping to create focal points in compositions. Okay, now these thumbnail templates can be used either portrait or landscape. It doesn't matter which way you want it. All you have to do is just rotate the canvas one way or the other. And you'll notice too that there's kind of the checkerboard stuff going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use both of these files here to create a template that I can actually draw on using a Wacom tablet. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with that. I'm going to go to my unlabeled one. Okay, and we're going to start there. First off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my my layers palette. Now you might want to make sure you're on the same basic setting that I am. For view, let's see, workspace, I am on painting. Okay, essentials is the default. So if you open up your computer and it looks like this, going to have to open up this little learn file and all this stuff. It's going to look different. I personally don't like the essentials setup because there's just too much junk over here. You know, learn Photoshop and do this. Yeah, great. You know, I've been using Photoshop for 25 years. So I don't really need that. I like to just go with painting, or if I'm working on a graphic design project. Or something like that. Sometimes I'll use, a different one, especially if I'm in like Illustrator, but like typography or something like that. So we'll click back on painting, and that gives us our swatches, which are really handy, and our brush settings over here, and our layers. Layers are hugely important in digital painting. The further you go into this course, you're gonna find that out. All right. So anyway, I got my layer right here. That is my basic layer. Okay. I don't like all these little things, these little checkerboards going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click on a new layer. So there's layer 2, which has nothing on it. I'm going to drag this beneath layer 1. And what I'm going to do, switch over to a white fill here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my paint bucket tool to just drop in white. Okay, that way I don't have to look at those stupid little checkerboards. Then I'm also going to relabel these. So I'm just going to call this background. And I'm going to lock that layer just by clicking on the little lock icon right there. So that is locked. Now this, I'm going to just call frames. It's always a good idea to label your layers. Okay, that way you can keep stuff straight. Especially if you're doing a really complicated digital painting. This isn't going to be a complicated digital painting, but when we start working on the final project, we're going to have a bunch of different layers probably built up, and it's always a good idea to have those labels so you don't get lost and have to click through trying to figure out what's what. Okay? All right, now let's go ahead and grab our spirals. Whoop, right there. Okay, so these guys are actually pretty handy. I think what I'm going to do is I'll just grab them all. So let's do a select all, and we'll copy that. And then we're going to go back here. I'm going to click on my background layer here, even though it's locked. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste there. Okay, see what that did was it placed the spirals inside of, it looks like inside of my boxes, okay? And it's a layer that's in between the background color, which is white, and the frames. Now, okay, you can say, well, why don't you just go back to this and put a white background behind that, and just go from there? Well, this being a PDF file, this is all flattened out, so the spiral is on the same layer as the frame. Okay, what I like to do with my stuff is I like to be able to change the opacity, so I can knock this down so it's a little fainter. Okay, like maybe 30%. Okay, that way I can still see the spirals and use them as a composition tool, but it's not going to get in the way of my drawing. Okay, so that's why I do that. Now, since we have that all set up, let's go ahead and change this to let's call this spirals. I spelled that right? Yeah, spirals, and we'll call that good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save it as a TIFF. I like TIFF files. You can also save it as a just a Photoshop document. That's fine too. I like TIFFs. I think they work better, and in that they allow me to preview what they are when I'm looking through my file folders with just a Windows Explorer. Okay, so I'm going to save this as a unlabeled thumbnail templates. We'll call this unlabeled thumbnail multi layered template, and then take out the so it says spiral. Now, whoops, gotta change that. Okay. You might want to, if you don't have as many files in your folders as I do, you might want to, put a more abbreviated name, just something you can remember. Because what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to wind up using this again and again and again. Okay, so it's always a good idea to save everything that you do, especially if you have a template. You can always open up later, save different versions of it, and go from there. So we'll hit save, and you can just go with the basic TIFF options. It's fine. And there we go. Okay, so we should be all set and ready to go. Now, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and close out this other file here, and then get started on this. Now, for my first painting, I'm going to go back to an older concept that I had a while ago, which I don't know. I think it might be a fun little thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sketching out some ideas using these spirals. Okay, and these are going to be pretty much all portraits. Like I said, if I want to, I could tip the canvas over and go that route. Before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lock this layer and lock this layer. Okay. Now, if I were to try and just draw, now that they're locked, it's not going to allow me to do that. Okay. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this. I'm just going to call this pencils, and that's going to be the layer that I actually draw on. Okay. Now, because I like my pencils to be a little bit fainter than anything else, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my opacity even on this down to maybe about 80%, so I have a little bit more of a gray tone in my drawing than I otherwise would. Okay, and that's just a personal preference. If you don't want to work that way, that's fine. Okay, now it's time to flip over to my. Right now, I've been using a mouse to set this up, but I'm going to go over to my my tablet and start working from there. So you're going to see some different stuff showing up. I need to pause this for a second to put on a animator's glove. I had not done that yet, and whenever I use a tablet, I like to use an animator's glove. That way, my hand doesn't the oils or any of that kind of stuff from your hand doesn't get on my tablet. Back in a second. Okay, so I'm back with my animator's glove on. Took a little sip of coffee and made sure my dogs were okay. Okay, let's go ahead and start sketching out a concept here. You can see that they're pretty well lined up. Okay, I can see a little shadowing going on. So my frames and my spirals aren't quite dead on. If you're really particular about that, you can do something like this really quick. I'm going to take my frames here, hit my move thing, and just tap. Tap, tap. Okay. That looks almost dead on. And then I'm just going to lock that back up again. Okay. Now they're dead on. Okay, now first things first here, what we've got is this. This is the focal point right here for this particular frame. Okay, so in this case, what I would want to do is let's kind of sketch out some basic stuff here. This would be a main character, okay, that I would have be the focal point. And right about where the eye line for this guy would be, okay, that is where my focal point would be. Okay, so in this case, let's kind of sketch out something really rough here. This is a character that I thought up, God, 30 years ago, man. 30 years. It's kind of a ridiculous supernatural adventurer character, you know. Kind of pulp action kind of stuff. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Called Dr. Nocturnal. And yes, I actually own the rights to the name Dr. Nocturnal. And have the .com for it if I ever want to do a web strip. I'm kind of particular in that whenever I come up with an idea for a character, I make sure that the .com is available and that it's not being used by anybody else. Of course, the name Dr. Nocturnal somebody was using on a blog, but they hadn't actually. This was years ago when I first claimed rights to it, but they hadn't actually done any of the stuff that was necessary to actually claim any sort of rights. So I snagged it and it changed his blog. Anyway, you know, you gotta do the legal stuff. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing the main character here, and you know I think I might sketch in. I don't know. I'm just playing around here. He's got his bow tie and his little jeweled cape thing. The idea for this guy was, I don't know, just kind of he has the look of a stage magician, but that's just because of the the actual story is set in at the turn of the century. So there's going to be like, let's throw in a couple of his assistants here. This would be like we could have a moon back here or something like that. So there's the moon, we'll say. And you can, when you're doing this kind of stuff, it can be really rough. A little bit of clouds here. Okay. And then let's throw in a sidekick here. He's got, the idea for this guy also is he's got a whole like group of sidekicks and oddballs, mostly plucked from circuses and stuff like that. So I've got a character that's one of his group who's a Wild West show sharpshooter. You know, because this is supposed to be like, like I said, 1900 or so. So this guy's kind of got that Buffalo Bill thing going on, and that's just trying to keep it fun. This you got this guy who's kind of a cowboy. His name is his actual name is Travis Gallup of all things. I gave him a stupid cowboy name. Gallup Cowboy. Okay, sure, why not? So, but it's not a serious thing anyway. This is the first idea for that I have for story is kind of a riff on a mummy story. Because they're turn of the century, all those Egyptologists and all that, running around raiding tombs and stuff. So those mummy movies, they're always like trying to, I'm going to, revive a mummy and have it do my bidding. Well, my idea for the story is that, hey, anybody that was rich enough to be mummified back in the day was probably not used to doing other people's bidding. So my idea is that the mummy, be brought back to life and wind up being a huge pain in the butt to the people that wanted to, use him for power, just because he's, a rich, pampered sort of, whatever. So it's a total riff on that kind of thing. So this is another character who's who'd be part of it. And you notice here that I still, if you've taken Part 105, you know about how to sketch out faces and stuff. So even though I'm using a Wacom tablet, I'm still using the basic tenets of drawing. Okay. Just because it's digital doesn't mean it's all that much different. Give this guy more like a derby. Actually, I'm going to make that just a little bit smaller brim there. I'm going to use my eraser here to kind of trim that up a little bit. Now, if you have your Wacom tablet and stylus set up correctly, you should be able to just flip your. You should just be able to flip your stylus over, and the butt end of your stylus should be the eraser. Okay, so got a little guy there. His name is Buster Jubb. Jubb is actually my grandmother's maiden name on my mom's side. I always thought it was just kind of a fun little name. All right, so we got our moon here. This would like fade out, okay, to nothing through here. So let's put a little ground here, and then we're going to erase away a little bit of this stuff through here, and then kind of sketch out. Let's see. Now, and here's another thing too about doing digital art. Just because, like I said, just because it's digital doesn't mean that any of the rules have changed. Okay, so this guy here, see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, he needs to be a little bit taller. Probably going to have his... Actually, I think I'll just make his head a little bit smaller. I tend to... Everybody has their little quirks when they draw. I tend to make people a little bobbleheady. So, so I need to make sure that the figure here, his head is the right size. We'll have some stuff hanging off of him. The concept for this is one of the few that I actually told my wife about, and she thought it was funny. Usually when I tell her I want to do some genre-specific thing, she's like, oh, come on, you know. I think she wants me to do stuff like Outlander or, you know, that kind of thing. That's just not me. All right, so we've got the... There we go. And we'll have more stuff, you know, hanging off of him. And that's the thing about thumbnails, okay? Thumbnails can be really rough. You don't want to get really into the weeds with details. You can go back in, like here, I'm going to go back in and maybe, you know, add, you know, a little bit of facial detail here, you know, just for my own reference. Fairly skeletal, but since he's a mummy, he's going to have, you know, some, you know, rotten flesh hanging off of him and stuff. Just having some fun with it. And as far as like detail of like, you know, the direction of the fingers and stuff, you know, you really don't need that at the thumbnail stage. All right, so let's so we got our main characters here. I'm going to put another suggestion of another member of the team behind here because he's got more people working for him and stuff. And let's go ahead and put in we'll just sketch out really quickly some creepy looking haunted house kind of thing. You know, some Addams Family looking, you know, whatever. The thing is, with something like this, later on in the drawing, you'd add all the details and all that kind of stuff. You know, for now, you just kind of sketch in roughly what you think it should look like, and let's you know, gnarled old tree over here, something like that. And notice too, while I'm doing this, I'm using the spiral. I'm using the spiral to kind of figure out where I should place stuff. Now, a tree, for example, might, you know, I might get rid of that, you know, eventually, or maybe the house. But, you know, that's the beauty of doing thumbnails. Okay, you don't have to have everything figured out. Okay, let's pop down to, well, let's see, this one. I'm not sure what I would want to do in this space here. It's sort of the exact opposite. And you know, the thing is too, if you want to twist the spirals around, you can do that too. That's really easy to do. If you want to have like this one over again, if you like this basic setup, you can just grab part of it just by unlocking, let's say, this part here. Grab my rectangle marquee, and I can just grab this, and then, you know, just copy and rotate. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now because I just don't want to. I like the basic setup right here. I think it's working all right. And if you want to have a better look at how things are looking too, you can always knock this stuff right off. Just take the visibility off and see what your basic concept looks like. Okay. Okay. Now let's see. I think I'm gonna go with this one next. Yeah. Okay. I might not do all 4 of these right now. For the assignment that I'm going to have you guys do, I actually am going to have you do 8, a total of 8 of these things, which seems like a lot, you know, but it's you know, it's important that you do this stuff. Okay, so let's see, make sure that's the right one. Yeah, okay. So let's go on to this one right here. I've got an idea for having the whole team be on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some extreme perspective stuff going on. Okay, so in this one right here, I'll go ahead and sketch out. Let's see. Let's make sure I got a ground room here. I'm going to sketch out the main character, Dr. Nocturnal. Have him standing sort of in the foreground like this. Put here. You want to remember where to plant the feet. Okay. Again, just basic drawing stuff. In this case, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have I'd probably have the like a title up here, and then we'd follow the character down here to where we have the team. Okay, hang on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. My wife was just texting me, and so if you heard a little ding, well, that's what it was. Okay, let's get back to this. So we got the main character here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, just making sure he's 8 heads high. All right. I think what I'm going to do is let's have little magic hands going on here. Now this one's sort of in a little bit of foreshortening going on here. Okay, so remember your Art 105. There's going to be a lot of this class, even though it's digital painting and drawing. It's going to be a lot of stuff that you're already familiar with if you've taken drawing 1. It's more drawing is more closely related to illustration than graphic design. Some people will say otherwise because, like, oh, well, it's all computers. No. What I'm doing right now is purely the same thing I would do in a sketchbook. Okay, so here we've got the instead of the mummy character being in full figure, we've got the main character, Dr. Nocturnal. So you can see his fabulous turn of the century outfit with the tails and the double-breasted vest and all that. I actually I kind of like the turn of the century sort of styles and stuff. Not at the point where I would be caught dead wearing any sort of steampunk outfit or anything like that. I'm in my 50s. I'm too old for that kind of nonsense. But the fashions just cracked me up. They were so over the top. One of the reference things that I use heavily for this project is actually you'd say it's almost like my Bible for this project. Would be an 1897 Sears and Roebuck catalog. Sears and Roebuck back in those days, they sold everything. It was incredible, the amount of products they would sell. And so when working on this strip, if something's not in that catalog, it doesn't appear in my comic strip. It just doesn't. What's amazing is that they even sold, we're talking the 1890s here. they were already selling in 1897 movie projectors and movie cameras. You know, so and they were selling them specifically to exhibitors and things like that. So okay, so down here, what we're gonna do, I want my focus on this one to be the group. Okay, so I'm gonna have these guys. The plane's gonna be back about here. Buster Jubb character. And again, these are really rough. You don't have to get really detailed with this stuff. Just so you know, this is your own like visual shorthand. Think of it that way. So whatever you need to do, however sketchy or complete you need to go to make something memorable to you as to who's who and what's what, you know, that's all you really need to do. I'll probably pop in and add a little more detail to these guys later. So there's the Buster character who wears the little derby and stuff. I've got another character that did not feature in the other one who's kind of a ritzy type. So I'll sketch him in. He's going to be like holding a walking stick. And then there's another character that I want to have in here. There's a female character who's loosely based on, I guess I'd say, Victorian era reporter named Nellie Bly. So, of course, it's not actually Nellie Bly, but I've got this idea for a character that would be based on her. You know, an intrepid female reporter doing her thing. You know, back in the day. So, wearing a tight-fitting traveling coat. Again, going back to stuff that actually we'll get rid of part of that walking stick there in that little sketch. Again, these are really rough, and your thumbnails, you know, like I said, it's just a way of figuring out what's going where and who's, you know, and all that. And like make him a little bit smaller, a lot of proportion. Okay, and then let's see, another character back here. Like I said, I got this like whole like team of people, and this guy is purely based on the sports section of the Sears and Roebuck catalog. Or so he is wearing more of a sportsman gear. He's got the knickers, turtleneck sweater. Tends to carry a football around. Kind of a Frank Merriwell type. If you don't know who Frank Merriwell is, that's okay. This character has not been popular in fiction since the 1920s. But Frank Merriwell, excuse me, was a popular fictional character in pulp magazines back in the day. Well, they actually predated pulp magazines. Back in those days, we'd call them dime novels. So he was a popular dime novel character. So I got a character based on that. And then, of course, I want to have Travis Gallup over here. Big white cowboy hat. Buckskins. You know, that whole kind of circus sharpshooter guy. And again, these guys are not perfectly to scale. I need to get the size better and add more detail later. But you kind of get the idea how I would do this. Okay, let's pop back up here and add a little more detail to this guy, our main character. Get my brush back again. Okay, and so we'll clean this up a little bit. Oh, by the way, if your icons don't show up correctly, you might just have like caps lock on or something like that. So you want to be aware of that. Okay, so little jewel here, little bow tie here. Well, yeah, let's give this guy sort of operatic hair. The thing is, the turn of the century, people would still have long hair. Men would still have long hair occasionally. It wasn't until about World War I that short hair became the thing again. It was kind of either or. That's why, well, classical music is sometimes referred to as long hair music, and that's a reference to an earlier time when, in the 19th century, when men still could, sport long hair. It got to the point where long hair was just long. If you were a male with long hair by let's say the 1930s or 1940s, you were probably an artist or a composer or some sort of la-di-da, kind of thing. So, and that's what I want with this guy. This guy's, Dr. Nocturnal. I want him to be the very sort of refined, sort of character. I'm a huge fan of Eric Powell's character, the Goon, and Mike Mignola's Hellboy. Okay, but the fact is, both of those guys are both Hellboy and the Goon. Even though I love those characters, they're intentionally rougher cut characters, which is cool. That's fine. I'm just trying to do something different. So, even though we're sometimes, I guess we'd be hitting some of the same sort of subject matter because they're dealing with paranormal subjects and stuff. I just want, as far as like the unrefined sort of regular Joe aspect, that's what I have these characters for. Okay, and actually, in my opinion, what I want to do with Dr. Nocturnal is I'd like to never explain his origin and just have it be him just be mysterious, and I think that would kind of work well because the audience identification bit would be with these guys here, because I want them to have strange powers that are never quite explained, whatever. I tend to try and stay away from your typical superhero stuff, but double check my settings here. There we go. Got a little heavy-handed there. Which happens sometimes. All right, this guy. Now that's the thing. Even though this guy's like a cowboy, okay, he still is wearing, even with the buckskins underneath that, I've got him wearing a vest and tie and stuff. It was a more formal time. So, buckskin there. Got the vest going on. Let's go ahead and start sketching in a little more of this little guy. I'm going to erase away a little bit of some of the sketchy stuff so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And that's the great thing about, again, this can go just as fast as doing this in pencil. It's really, I guess the reason why I chose to do the thumbnails digitally this time was because it saves me a little time, frankly. Um, a little bit of hair going on there. It saves me time because doing it this way, I don't have to, rather than with pencils, is I don't have to scan it and all of that. When I get done with this thing here, these four, and don't worry, I'm not gonna film all four. You don't have to watch me do all four of these things. This is taking here's 40 minutes already as it is. Um, Once I'm done with this, it's going to be pretty much, and I save a web version. It's going to be pretty much ready to go. I guess upload it to the web without having to scan it and do all that other stuff. So if you want to work um, traditionally with your thumbnails, that's fine. When it comes to actually doing the painting, hey, this class is digital painting and illustration. You're going to have to use a Wacom and Photoshop to do that. So keep that in mind. This guy over here, let's give him a. Oh, he's actually standing behind him. So we'll get rid of a little bit of that. I just drew that in so I know where it would come out on the other side. Sort of a sharp's rifle or something like that. Like I said, this is the sharpshooter of the group. And of course, this being a comic book, these guys are like ready for action. In case I didn't explain that earlier, this would be in my case, this digital painting would be the cover of a comic book. So there we go. A little more detail there. Got to think about foot placement. Okay, one's pointing this way, well, the other one be pointing. Make sure their heels are lined up. This guy, again, he's a little his head's a little big. He's a little stocky here. And and if you want to make that change, that's really easy to do. As a matter of fact, let's do that. I'll go ahead and grab this guy's head because it's too big, and then we'll go to free transform, and then we'll just make it a little bit smaller. Put it right there. There we go. See, that's another great thing about working digitally. You can make those little changes like that. Okay, now I'm actually, I don't want to say I'm running out of time, but I haven't finished my concept here yet. So I'm going to leave these guys' faces sort of blank for now. I'm not going to put in all that detail, but I want to put in what's going to be looming in this space right in here, which would be the mummy and the sort of high priest type that revived him, and the hapless guy that has witnessed a lot of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in some floating heads here. We'll have the mummy right about here. We'll have the other guy right about here. Now, what I would probably do, and the other guy right about here, what I would probably do is these guys, in the final painting, I would probably have them be at a lower opacity and kind of fading into the dark or whatever I have here, because this would probably be dark. And the way I will mark that this is going to be dark or like black or something like that, a lot of times I'll put in X's. That's just a note to myself. That's what that's going to be. All right, so let's sketch in our crazy looking mummy. So we got the eye line sketched in here. Remember, you get the eye line lines up with the tops of the ears. And the finished one, I might move this guy's hand a little bit so I can see this thing a little bit easier. The teeth showing. Kind of crazy looking thing. So there's a thin little bit of flesh holding this guy together. What I'd probably do too is I'll make a note of this right here. I would probably have this guy kind of lit from below. So let's put in some really quick shading here. So lit from below, so it looks all creepy, and you know how when you're telling scary stories when you're camping, you put the flashlight under your chin, kind of like that. So kind of sketch in some just some rough shading. And again, when you're doing thumbnails, these are just notes to yourself, okay? And then, okay, let's put in the high priest here. So, actually start right from the beginning and put in the Egyptian style. Egyptian style eyeliner. And again, just sort of like just sketching out roughly the way the light's going to work. Actually, if you know how your lighting's going to work, you can use that to kind of sketch out the whole thing. So that'd be the lower lip here, nostril, chin. Yeah, something like that. Again, just really sort of rough. Kind of suggest that he's wearing one of these, sort of Egyptian looking neck plate things. I don't know what you call them, frankly. And then finally this guy over here, which would be the the idea of this guy over here is the guy that actually owned the mummy. Because actually, back in the 1800s, you could if you were an Egyptologist or you're just a tourist, you could go and buy a mummy off the street, in Egypt, which is just insane to think about it. Because you're buying the corpse of a human being, Oh, sorry, I don't mean to be getting into morals and stuff, but that just doesn't seem right. So anyway, so we've got this, dude here. Hapless idiot. Big mustache. Let's clean that up just a touch. And let's give him the proper sort of attire. Okay. And then let's zoom out a little bit. All right, that's not too bad. Okay, that would probably work. All right, this video is almost 50 minutes long, so I am going to sign off pretty quick here. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is do a number of these thumbnails. What I am going to require for this class for thumbnails for the first project is 2 sheets of these. Okay, now you can do the orientation any way that you want. Okay, it doesn't matter if you want to go, portrait like I've been doing or landscape. you know, whatever you want to do is fine. I'm doing portrait because, like I said, this is going to be like a comic book cover. Um, but that's basically how you get started. Okay. All right. Cool. I look forward to seeing your guys' stuff. Talk to you soon.